The science fair smelled like poster board, Elmer's glue, and expectations. Joshua Bennett, 17, stood beside his hand-built prototype, a rough-looking but functioning propulsion system powered by electromagnetism and recycled lithium batteries. His suit was slightly too big. His hands were slightly sweaty. But his mind? Sharp as ever. It wasn't just a school fair. This was the State Science Invitational, the kind of event that funneled kids into Ivy Leagues, internships, and shiny futures. Booths lined the gymnasium, filled with baking soda volcanoes, solar panels, and gene splicing theories written in Sharpie. Some students had matching t-shirts. Others had parents networking in the back. Joshua had his invention. And his mother's packed lunch waiting in his backpack. People walked by and stared, half interested, until he explained what it did. Then they leaned in. Really in. This could power satellites, one judge mumbled, taking furious notes. Joshua nodded. Or stabilize long-range drone systems with 30% less fuel. I have the data. But not everyone was impressed. Two boys from an elite private school, pressed blazers, high-end laptops, polished exhibits, hovered nearby. They'd already overheard the buzz around Joshua's booth. One smirked. Did he build that in shop class? Looks like it's held together with duct tape, the other laughed. No way he did that himself. Later, during the lunch break, Joshua returned to his table and found his project unplugged, wire slightly frayed, display screen flickering. A small sticker was slapped on his board. Recycled. Not original work. He stared at it. Stunned. His prototype still worked, but now it was disqualified. They claimed it resembled a known university concept. No warning. No investigation. Just gone. His mother argued. A teacher tried to reason. But the decision was final. So Joshua packed up. Carried his invention out of the school gym while kids whispered and others stared. His mom squeezed his shoulder. They don't know who you are. He didn't cry. Not yet. But that night, he posted a thread on Twitter. A quiet, detailed breakdown of what he'd built, how he'd done it, and what it meant for propulsion efficiency. He ended with, "They didn't ask. But here's my work. My name is Joshua Bennett. I'm 17. I love space." He closed the laptop, turned off his phone, and went to bed thinking the day was over. It wasn't. NASA had already seen the thread. Joshua didn't check his phone until noon the next day. He expected silence, or maybe a few likes from classmates or mutuals who felt bad. But what he saw made his fingers freeze above the screen. 9,746 notifications. His Twitter thread had exploded overnight. Scientists, engineers, college professors, and even astronauts had reshared it. One quote tweet stood out immediately, pinned at the top. "This young man just described an innovation we've been researching at JPL for 18 months, and he did it in his garage. Hire him immediately." At Dr._Maya Liu, NASA Jet Propulsion Lab. His jaw dropped. He clicked her profile. Real. Verified. Head of Advanced Propulsion Concepts at NASA. Dozens of comments followed, researchers asking for his full paper, STEM professionals offering mentorship, journalists trying to reach him for interviews. His mother peeked into his room. "Josh? You good?" He turned, eyes wide. "NASA retweeted me." She blinked. "I thought you were joking." NASA? He nodded slowly. NASA. The next moment changed his life. His email chimed, a message from someone named Mark Withers, with a@nasa.gov address. Subject, regarding your propulsion design. Hi Joshua. We've reviewed your thread and your design notes. Are you available for a Zoom meeting this afternoon? Mark Withers, Propulsion Systems Division, NASA Ames Research Center. He reread it 5 times. His hands were trembling. 2 hours later, Joshua sat in his bedroom, wearing his only collared shirt, a bookshelf of sci-fi novels behind him. The NASA call connected. 3 people appeared, Mark, Dr. Liu, and a third man with silver hair and soft eyes who introduced himself as Deputy Director Green. The first 10 minutes were technical. They grilled him, in a respectful, curious way, asking how he resolved issues with heat dispersion, how he stabilized the magnetic containment, what software he used for modeling. He answered every question, not because he had been trained, but because this was his language. His world. Then Dr. Liu smiled and leaned forward. Joshua, how would you feel about spending a week at the lab this summer? Paid. Full access. Work with our team. You'll be the youngest contributor, but, frankly, one of the most promising. He froze. I would love that. Green added, and we'd like to nominate you for the Emerging Inventors in Aerospace Award. Don't worry, we'll handle the paperwork. We just want to make sure the right people recognize you. Joshua's voice cracked. Thank you. After the call, he sat back in his chair and stared at the ceiling, still holding his breath. He hadn't even graduated high school yet. And NASA had just called him a genius. Outside, the sun poured into the window, lighting up his small desk, still cluttered with wires, notes, and duct tape dreams. Joshua thought the NASA call would be the peak. That nothing could top that surreal moment of hearing his name spoken in the same breath as lab access and award nomination. But that was just the start. The story went viral. Every major outlet wanted an interview: CNN, BBC, NPR, even a segment offer from The Daily Show. His Twitter following exploded overnight, growing from 142 friends and classmates to over 300,000 strangers rooting for him. And not just strangers. Professors from MIT, Caltech, and Howard University sent him personal emails. A Stanford astrophysicist offered to mentor him through senior year. Suddenly, he wasn't the kid who got kicked out of the fair. He was the teen who cracked a NASA-level propulsion concept in his garage. Except not everyone was celebrating. At school, the atmosphere changed. Some teachers were glowing, proud to say they taught him. But others? Strangely quiet. Cold even. His physics teacher, Mr. Danning, who had once refused to write him a recommendation letter because he lacked discipline, now avoided eye contact altogether. Joshua noticed. So did his mother. Some people don't know how to handle being wrong, she told him one night, as they sat on the couch, scrolling through the latest article with his face on it. It's easier to pretend they didn't see the truth. Worse than the silence were the murmurs. Anonymous accounts started questioning whether he really built the prototype alone. Posts surfaced on local forums, some claiming he had help, others suggesting NASA was only using him for PR. One even accused him of playing the race card. Joshua read every word. Not because he believed them, but because he needed to understand the backlash that came with visibility. For every door that opened, someone tried to slam another shut. It stung. But it didn't stop him. He doubled down on his work. Started posting short explainer videos, breaking down the science behind his project in ways even middle schoolers could understand. He launched a YouTube channel, Black Sky, where he talked about black scientists, overlooked inventors, and the future of propulsion. Within weeks, teachers were using his videos in classrooms. A black middle schooler from Detroit sent him a message: "You made me want to be an engineer." That one line hit harder than any headline. The world was watching him now, and not just because of what he built, but because of what he represented. A reminder that genius doesn't always look the way people expect it to. That sometimes, brilliance wears second-hand suits and builds rockets with recycled parts. And that no amount of whispering or erasure could dim a mind that was already lighting up the stars. The first time Joshua walked through the gates of the NASA Ames Research Center, it didn't feel real. The sun was blindingly bright, the air buzzed with quiet energy, and everything around him, from the massive wind tunnels to the modern glass buildings, felt like he'd stepped onto a movie set. Except this wasn't fiction. This was where science turned into future. A badge with his name printed in bold hung around his neck, and every door that once felt sealed shut was now swinging open. A young black man with duct tape dreams, now wearing safety goggles and walking side by side with rocket scientists. He didn't say much that first morning. He just watched and listened. They gave him a tour of the propulsion lab, humming machines, vacuum chambers, prototypes suspended like abstract sculptures. And yet, what struck him wasn't the tech. It was the people. Engineers in worn hoodies, some with thick accents, others with tattoos under lab coats. Women in hijabs checking satellite data. A paraplegic programmer with voice-controlled systems. The real face of science, diverse, driven, and nothing like the textbook photos. Later that day, Dr. Maya Liu invited him into a small glass-walled room and pulled up a model of his prototype on the screen. "We reverse-engineered your concept," she said, "and you were right. Your containment method reduces thermal waste by 18%. That's massive." Joshua blinked. I just thought it made sense. The shape, the flow. She grinned. It did. Because you thought like an outsider. Not inside their math, inside the problem. For the next few days, he worked beside her team. Not as a visitor, but as a contributor. They asked his opinion. Listened. Debated. At night, he returned to the dorm they'd set up for him, head spinning, fingers itching to sketch new diagrams. But in quiet moments, doubt whispered. Was this a fluke? Was he just a symbol, a token? One evening, while waiting in the lab's quiet atrium, an older janitor walked by, a tall black man with silver hair and kind eyes. He paused when he saw Joshua. You the one they talkin' about on the news? Joshua nodded, almost shyly. The man smiled. I used to mop these floors thinking I'd never see a face like mine in one of those labs. You in there now? And just like that, the doubt melted. He belonged, not because he was perfect, not because NASA said so, but because he'd earned it. Through late nights. Through being overlooked. Through pushing forward when no one clapped. This wasn't luck. This was legacy. The days at NASA turned into weeks, and soon Joshua's prototype was no longer just a project, it was a real system with a code name, Vortex 17. Engineers refined it. Mathematicians ran simulations. And by the third week, the lab confirmed something wild. With Vortex 17 integrated, a small-class satellite could remain in orbit 42% longer without needing a refuel or adjustment. That wasn't just impressive, it was disruptive. It meant money saved. It meant missions extended. It meant new possibilities for deep space travel. One afternoon, Joshua was called into a high-level meeting, one with executives, legal advisors, and two people in suits who didn't smile when they shook his hand. They praised his innovation. They highlighted the performance. Then they offered him a contract. A very large one. They wanted full rights to the design. The wording was careful: collaborative ownership, commercial rollout, intellectual security. But what it meant was clear: NASA would absorb his idea, refine it, and he would be credited. Modestly. His name would be included, his resume enriched, his future secure. College? Paid for. Patent royalties? Negotiable. A dream, on paper. Joshua sat there, holding the pen. And something didn't feel right. He thought of the science fair, the sticker slapped on his board that said recycled. He thought of the boys who laughed at his wires and said he didn't look like a real inventor. He thought of all the black kids online who had messaged him since, some building drones in their bedrooms, others just trying to stay in school. If he signed this, he'd be just another genius absorbed into the system, tucked away behind white walls and boardrooms. So he looked up and said something that froze the room. What if I licensed it instead? They blinked. Excuse me? He took a breath. What if I keep the rights and license the tech to NASA for non-commercial research use? Then I can build the version I want on the outside. One that's open source. One that schools and students can access. One that doesn't sit behind corporate glass. There was silence. A woman in the corner raised an eyebrow. You realize you're turning down 7 figures? He nodded. I do. It wasn't arrogance. It was clarity. Because this wasn't just about the engine. It was about the message that invention didn't belong to institutions, it belonged to minds that weren't supposed to be in the room in the first place. They didn't smile. But they respected it. By the end of the meeting, the agreement had changed. Joshua Bennett, age 17, became the sole holder of the Vortex 17 patent. And in his own words, it would never be just another lost idea swallowed by a system that didn't know how to see him until it needed him. When Joshua stepped off the plane back home, nothing looked different: the same cracked sidewalk outside the terminal, the same sleepy town skyline in the distance. But everything had changed. In his backpack wasn't just a laptop anymore, it held contracts, lab notes, and a keycard to a future most kids in his neighborhood couldn't even imagine. His mother met him at the curb, and when she hugged him, she didn't say anything. She didn't need to. She had seen the articles, the interviews, the NASA badge he'd mailed her with a note, for the fridge. But home wasn't just warmth, it was reality. Back in school, things felt strange. Teachers looked at him differently, some with pride, some with guarded distance, as if unsure how to treat him now. Classmates, especially the ones who had never spoken to him before, suddenly wanted to sit near him, ask questions, fish for quotes. So what's next? Are you gonna move? Did you really turn down all that money? But Joshua had already made up his mind. He went straight to the principal's office and asked for permission to use the old computer lab after hours. It had been half abandoned, dusty towers from the early 2000s, flickering monitors, chairs with one leg shorter than the others. He rolled up his sleeves and got to work. Within 2 weeks, he cleaned it out, rewired the network, and launched something new, Project Horizon, a free STEM club with no entry requirements. No GPA minimums. No application essays. Just curiosity. At first, only a few kids showed up. A shy girl from 9th grade who loved space documentaries. A skateboarder who liked to mess with drones. A quiet boy who never raised his hand in class but solved a three-dimensional logic puzzle in 12 minutes. Joshua didn't try to be their teacher. He didn't lecture. He built alongside them. He showed them what he had built, not to impress, but to demystify. "This isn't magic," he said one afternoon, holding up a circuit board. "It's persistence. And a little YouTube." The club grew. Word spread. Soon, they were soldering parts, coding basic AI scripts, building tiny rovers that could navigate the school hallway without crashing. A local tech company donated Raspberry Pi kits. A retired black engineer from NASA offered to Zoom in monthly. Someone even offered them space downtown, a proper lab, but Joshua refused. "Not yet," he said. "This needs to start here. In the building where they told me I didn't belong." Some parents complained. "Why is it always that group of kids in there? Why isn't this being led by a real teacher?" But the principal, now proudly watching the school make national news for something other than test scores, stood by the project. And Joshua? He kept showing up. After class. On weekends. Sometimes just to sit and watch his younger peers figure something out on their own, their eyes lighting up with the realization that they could. Because somewhere along the way, the story stopped being about redemption and started becoming something far more powerful, replication. 6 months later, Joshua stood behind a curtain backstage at the International Youth Science Forum in D.C. The lights were blinding through the velvet drapes. The room beyond buzzed with journalists, scientists, and political figures. Banners with words like innovation, equity, and future leaders hung from every wall. A man in a suit with a clipboard leaned in. "You good?" Joshua nodded, adjusted the mic clip to his shirt, and waited for the cue. Outside, the announcer's voice boomed, and this year's recipient of the Emerging Genius Award, for his groundbreaking propulsion research and community work, is Joshua Bennett. The applause hit like a wave. He stepped out into the light, taller somehow, even though his body was the same. But this time, the world saw him differently. Not as a boy with potential, but as a man with purpose. He approached the podium. Cameras flashed. Somewhere in the front row, his mother sat in a navy blue dress, tears in her eyes, hands over her mouth. Behind her were scientists who used to ignore messages from kids like him. Now, they called him colleague. He held the award in one hand, smooth, heavy, engraved with his name. But his speech wasn't about propulsion, or math, or orbits. He cleared his throat and began. "When I was 15, I got kicked out of a science fair. They said my work was recycled. That I must have stolen the idea. That I didn't look like someone who invented things. I thought that would be the end of my story. But it was just the first chapter." He paused. The room was silent. "I'm not here because I'm the smartest. I'm here because someone believed in me when others didn't. Because my mother kept pushing even when we were told to leave quietly. And because I stopped waiting for permission to build what I saw in my mind." He looked out at the crowd. There are kids right now, in cities, in rural towns, in places no one bothers to visit, who are building brilliance from broken parts. Who solder wires between school shifts. Who take buses across town just to use a working computer. We don't need more awards. We need more open doors. A beat. Then, so I'm donating this prize, all of it, to build the first Project Horizon lab outside my hometown. For kids who've been told you don't belong here. That sentence used to hurt me. Now I just turn it into a blueprint. The room erupted. Later that night, after the interviews, the photos, the congratulations, Joshua found himself alone in the quiet green room backstage. He took out his phone and opened a message from a 14-year-old in Texas. "They tried to kick me out of my robotics club. But I watched your video and kept going. Just wanted to say thank you." He smiled. Put the phone away. Looked up. And whispered to himself, "This was never just about me.